Hello, everybody. I'm Adam Austin. I'm a city councilor for the Southeast District of Carmel, and we're joined today with Michael Klitzing, the director of Carmel Clay Parks and Recreation. And we have him here today because I get a lot of questions about Flowing Well Park and the kind of construction that a lot of people see when they drive by. So I thought providing an update on this project would be great. And we want to note, although I'm trying to provide information for my city council constituents, this is actually a project funded by the townships. We want to give the Clay Township Board kind of the credit for this one. So Michael, tell us a little bit about what people will expect when Flowing Well and the construction is complete. What is this all about?
Well, Adam, thank you very much for the opportunity. And like you said, we're very appreciative to Clay Township and their impact program for making this project possible. They're providing almost $2 million worth of funding for the improvements that you're going to see in Flowing Well Park. And really, the primary focus of the project here was based on our 5-year comprehensive master plan, where we do an assessment of all parks within the park system. And what we identified within Flowing Well as our biggest challenge is that the creek beds, the banks along the creek were really starting to become incredibly eroded, which was creating issues for our neighbors. First, our neighbors to the north and the residents in that community, as well as to the south, we border 116th Street, and especially near the bridge that's just west of where the actual wellhead is. It's very closely encroaching upon the road and would create stability issues for 116th Street if we don't do the bank stabilization. So that's really what drove the focus. Flowing Well is one of our community's most popular and storied parks. Obviously, the history of the Flowing Well and people filling their jugs for many, many decades at Flowing Well. So much love and devotion within the community for this park. And it's actually one of my favorite parks too, because while everyone thinks of Flowing Well for the well, there's so much more to the park than just the well. The creek that flows through it and a naturalized trail system back there that in the spring has one of the best displays of Virginia bluebells and is just a delightful kind of escape in the middle of the city. But kind of getting into the project a little bit more specifically, I'm going to share my screen here so that you can see some of the work that's actually going to be taking place. And hopefully you can see it now. Here's a sort of a zoom in of the area with the Flowing Well. The well is located right here where my cursor is pointing. But one of the things, this is a well-visited park, so we're actually going to slightly expand the parking to better accommodate the visitation that we see in this park. Additionally, one of the things that has always been a challenge with this park is if you're using the perimeter trail networks within the city to get to Flowing Well, you've had to go into the parking lot to be able to get to the trail networks or to the actual wellhead. So we're actually going to create a new pathway off of the perimeter trail along 116th Street so that you can safely get into the park without actually having to walk through the parking lot itself. And then because while many people come for short visits to fill up their jugs at the well, we also have many people that enjoy stopping in the creeks and using the trail networks and bringing their kids or grandkids to use the park. And one of the challenges this park has always had is not having a restroom facility. So we're actually going to put a restroom facility here that will be open year-round, so people will be able to enjoy the park not only for short visits but also for longer visits and be able to have a little comfort break if necessary. One of the, just to show some recent progress, this photo was actually only taken a couple days ago, but here you can see that new trail that's starting to come in. It actually will be paved. This is the subsurface for the trail. It connects into our trail network, which continues to the left on this photo, as well as provides an additional connection into the well house. And you can see that that's temporarily fenced off so that, to discourage people from using it during the construction phase. Here you can also see the beginning of the restroom facility that's being constructed. There'll be 2 single-use facilities, just like the restroom facilities we have along the Monon Greenway at our north-south trailheads, as well as the new one we opened up in Central Park this year. And we're trying to reflect the architectural style of the existing well house. So it's going to be wide, it's going to have the same sort of slopes and everything, so it ties in very nicely to the wellhouse structure that we have today. Looking a little bit more at the broader park, like I said, there's so much more to the park than just the little area around the well. And each of these highlighted areas is where we're really seeing significant bank erosion within the creek. Here you can see that it's starting to push towards 116th Street, here to our neighbors to the north. And a lot of this, as the community continues to grow, we see, and more storm events in general, we just see the flow of the creek a lot more robust than what it was even 10, 15 years ago. And as a result, everywhere you have these bends, you're starting to see the creek try to push itself further to the south. So here's some examples of really what we're seeing and why we're making the improvements. Here's 116th Street in the upper left-hand corner. Here you can see where one of those bins are, and this the water is doing what it's done in the Grand Canyon and other places. It's just pushing through and further eroding the banks. And you're seeing this tree within a few years will fall in, and it'll just continue to push here to the west as the creek is flowing. Here's another area that's closer to our neighbors to the north. Again, here the roots are helping a little bit, but ultimately all of these trees would be compromised if we don't do bank stabilization. So what the stabilization actually looks like is, and this is what's really delayed the process a little bit. Whenever you're doing work in a creek like Cool Creek or the White River or any flowing body of water like this, there's a lot of regulatory permits that you have to get. Environmental management through the state, Indiana Department of Natural Resources, the Army Corps of Engineering, as well as local permits through the city of Carmel. And due to COVID-19, that permitting process has been taking a lot longer. Plus, there's the regular give and take as far as here are our plans, the regulators take a look at it, they like tweaks to it. And in this particular case, Indiana Department of Environmental Management has asked us to actually, instead of using what our original application was, which was using kind of wire cages filled with rocks and then keeping a naturalized shore so that it keeps that nature feel within this park, they wanted us to use stones. And the typical application is what's called riprap. You see that along highways, the limestone that's cut up into smaller pieces. It's not necessarily the most aesthetically pleasing look, which is something that we're striving for within the park. So we've worked and compromised, or in the process of compromising with IDEM, so that we're using stone, but using bigger boulders to put into these areas, which will stabilize it. But ultimately, as everything regrows, it's going to be a much more natural look, so that it feels like you're still in nature. It feels like it's always been there, but it keeps the bank stabilized. We used a similar application in Central Park in our East Woods. Today, you would never know that we did bank stabilization there because the way the stones fit in and the vegetation has come back. It looks like it has always been there. So that's the type of application that we're planning on using here in Flowing Well. Here's one additional shot. Oh, I'm sorry.
So not only is the bank stabilization needed because when there's flooding to affect stormwater issues for neighboring homes, which is very important, but Absolutely. Also flooding of the creek affects the quality of the water at the well as well.
That is correct. And there are multiple times throughout the year, especially in the spring, when we have our spring rains, that the creek will overflow. And that's a natural thing. The entire park is within either the floodway or the floodplain. So part of the reason that this park is here is to protect and ensure that we're not building homes and businesses right on an area where the water flows. But the more that we can keep the water contained within the creek, certainly the better it is for the park and for the quality of the water in the well.
So when can people expect the well will be reopened and they can start filling their jugs again?
So if all goes well and we get the permitting when we anticipate it, the work will be progressing on installation of the stream bank, hopefully within the next month. And we are still optimistic that the park will be opened end of the year, January at the latest. Obviously, that's subject to permitting, and we don't necessarily have control over how quickly the state moves with some of these things. But right now, we're still very optimistic that right around the beginning of the year, we'll be able to reopen, and people will once again be able to fill their jugs and enjoy the refreshing water from Flowing Well.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. If people have any more questions, they can visit your website and kind of see the plans, correct?
That is correct. You can go to carmelclayparks.com, and we have a section that's called Reimagining Parks that has all the not only Flowing Well, but the township is paying for improvements in a number of our parks. So you can learn about all of those improvements at our Reimagining Parks section within carmelclayparks.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Michael.
Well, Adam, as always, thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit what we're doing, and appreciate this time to talk to the residents. Thank you.